When a student asks you, why are we learning this? Not to be difficult, just because they really want to know. In that very moment, do you have an answer beyond the test? Because that's one of the most important questions a student will ever ask. And in this video, we're going to learn how to build lessons so that your students will never ask you that question. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about connecting learning to the real world, what it actually means within an IB context, why it matters, and most importantly, why this doesn't mean that you have to reinvent your lessons from scratch. Let's get started. When teachers first hear connect learning to the real world, the assumption is that it means finding a relevant news article or a good video clip to open the lesson, something to warm students up before the real content begins. And that's not really what the IB is asking for. So when you are planning, the question isn't what real example could I add here? Instead, it is what meaningful context could help students understand why this learning matters. So for instance, in science, students might learn about renewable energy, but the learning doesn't stop at understanding how solar panels work. They also explore how energy choices affect communities, economies, and the environment around the world. Or for instance, in mathematics, students often learn how to collect, represent, and analyze data. So rather than using random numbers, they might investigate global issues such as carbon emissions, population growth, or access to education. Mathematics becomes a tool for understanding real-world challenges and making informed decisions. So you see that the content is the same, but the entry point changes. Keep that in mind because we are going to see how that work has already been done for you. An important point is that you do not have to create these connections from scratch. The IB programs already include frameworks designed specifically for this. So this isn't optional enrichment, it is structural. The IB starts from a simple but powerful belief that learning should help students understand both themselves and their place in an interconnected world. And this happens throughout all the different programs. There's plenty of opportunities for students to do this. The focus on world connections is also visible in the learner profile, in service learning and interdisciplinary learning. Also in the development of international mindedness, which we'll see in a later video. The result is that students learn to move from asking, what do I need to know? And instead, they go beyond. They begin asking deeper questions. Why does this matter? Who might see this differently? How is my local experience connected to wider global realities? And perhaps that's one of the defining features of an IB education, not simply preparing students for examinations, but helping them understand the complex interconnected world they're already part of. If you are coming from a national exam board curriculum, this will probably be the biggest adjustment in how you approach planning. So, before your next lesson, here are 3 questions that could be useful. First, what real-world context could bring this learning to life? Second, what perspectives could students explore and which might be missing? Third, how will you make that connection visible and explicit to your students? And that's it. No new resources, just a reorientation of questions that you are probably already asking. And here's the underlying principle that ties all of this together, the IB mission statement. The IB mission statement describes developing young people who help create a better and more peaceful world. And that isn't marketing language. It really is a design brief. Every structural choice in IB curriculum, from global context to the different perspectives, to real-world connections, to the learner profile, is in service of that goal. When you understand that, real-world learning stops feeling like an add-on and starts feeling like the point. And when it starts feeling like that's the whole point, your planning becomes much more coherent. The frameworks are already there. The context is the mechanism, not the decoration. And the purpose of learning needs to be made really explicit and visible to the students. So your one action this week is take a lesson that you have already planned, run it through those 3 questions. Don't rebuild it, just ask the questions and see what you notice. If this video was useful, subscribe to the channel and watch out for the next video in this series. See you there.